go ahead and start recording this thing. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're a prompt group, right? 7:01. We're going to go ahead and crank this thing out. Appreciate everybody jumping on, guys. We wanted to have a night where we could share information with everyone, and basically just that, we're going through this time where everybody's kind of stuck at home, and there's just a lot of, I guess, idle time. And so we wanted to do something that we could, benefit you guys and just talk hitting. And we've got three awesome panelists tonight, three great baseball minds, and excited to hear, their opinions on several different topics that we'll talk about. So I'm just going to quickly introduce them, and then I'm going to just kind of moderate the talk and let these guys share with you. But let me go ahead and get into the introductions. We got Ryan Wright with us, former player at Oklahoma City University, also a former college coach and recruiting coordinator at Montana State, and he is currently a hitting coach with the Toronto Blue Jays organization. So we're excited to have Ryan with us. Matt Haig. A lot of you guys know Coach Matt from the Knights, but for those of you that don't, Coach Matt's a former college player at Oklahoma State and University of Washington. He went on to have over a 10-year professional career and reached the major leagues with the Pittsburgh Pirates and Toronto Blue Jays. He's currently working with the Toronto Blue Jays as a swing consultant. And also, we're very fortunate to have him working with the Knights organization and working with our hitters. And then we have Mr. Adam Heisler, who is in Mobile, Alabama, two-time drafted player, former professional player with the Chicago White Sox, reaching AAA. And as I was doing my research today on Coach Heisler a little deeper, he's a career 271 hitter. So that's pretty impressive, Coach. Currently runs his own training facility in Mobile, the Heisler Heat Baseball Academy. And he's currently the Knights Gulf Coast Director of Player Development, and it's been a big resource for our guys in our program, and he'll be coaching one of our teams this summer as well. So that's your panel, guys, and we have some topics to discuss, and I'm just going to bring up a couple of subjects and then just kind of let these guys talk shop. And if you have any questions as we go through this, just feel free to type in a question in the Zoom or in the chat portion of the Zoom platform there. Just go ahead and type in your question. We'll try to get to it. But we're basically, what we want to start off with is, big buzzword these days is launch angle. Everybody kind of talks about launch angle in a variety of ways. And mainly what I wanted to ask these guys is just basically, what does launch angle really mean? And, what do hitters need to know about launch angle? I'll start just with Coach Matt Haig and let him just kind of talk a little about his thoughts on that.
Oh, man. Well, thanks for everyone joining us first. Thanks for having us on here, Jack. It's always fun, especially when we get the opportunity to talk to youth and amateur players. The launch angle, I guess, buzzword is thrown around so much these days. And it's actually a really complex reading. I want you guys to think more of, we use launch angle to measure. There's not necessarily a swing. I've heard that term a lot, like teach me a launch angle swing. I think a couple things, and I did a little video on it for the Knights on the YouTube channel, right, Jack? Is that what it is on the YouTube? And just kind of a brief introduction. I'd actually love to hear Ryan and Adam talking about it too. But launch angle is more, for the Blue Jay system, we like measuring it with exit velocity and basically spin as well. Think about it more of, if it also has a tendency to measure out barrel consistency, barrel manipulation. So once you guys do get a chance to hit on Rapsodo or TrackMan, biggest thing is trying to find that maximum peak first. What can your body right now physically output wise as far as how hard we can hit the ball? And then as an organization with Toronto, we use it a lot as trying to stay within 10%. So again, it teaches barrel consistency, manipulation. We work different zones with it so we can train our bodies how to hit it consistently. Now with direction or spin at RPM and launch angle, exit velocity, those three things need to be used together. I'll give you an example. Like, so if I'm swinging here and the common term is being steep to it, right? Or swing down on the ball. So one of the measurements we use with launch angle is the spin on the ball. So a steep swing, if we're swinging straight down, okay, straight down to a ball, what happens is we usually put turbo spin up in the air or turbo spin into the ground. So if we're constantly working with a launch angle, let's just say for right now, 10 to 20 degrees, and we check the RPMs on like a Rapsodo or TrackMan, and it's above 3,500, that instantly usually tells us we're directly steep. So think about it more of like a measurement to swing, and also it helps with buy-in and feedback from the players. Once we do make mechanical changes to guys, they can see the ball carry at a more efficient rate and more consistently. I think like a brief introduction, one of the things we do is we try and stay between 10 to 20 degrees and just train that for a while. But the money zone, honestly, is around 30, debatable up to 35 degrees. That's the maximum we usually want to attain there. I'll kick it off to one of you guys if you guys want to expand on. I know there's a lot to expand on. I could probably go on it for a little bit. What you got, Ryan?
Yeah, I thought you hit it pretty well there, Maddie. And the big thing is, I love that you touched on exit velo, because that is kind of the first thing that can determine really where you want to try to live as a hitter. Now, even if we're trying to chase 20-degree launch angle, because we know that line drive contact is going to give us the most hits and potential for extra base hits, it's not something we can attain all the time. But it's more so knowing with your exit velo where that plays to where you can be as a hitter. Am I going to be more of a low line drive guy because my exit velo isn't as high as other guys? Because the moment I start to lift in the air and get more towards that 30 to 35 degree launch angle, I'm be hitting a lot of fly ball outs. If you're a guy as you continue to get stronger, develop, you make consistent hard contact and can still keep it, 95 plus coming off your bat and live at 25, 30 degrees consistently, one, you're going to hit a lot of extra base hits and home runs, which is awesome, but you can afford to be at that launch angle. So that's why we really focus on the 10% as well. Just telling guys, hey, even though we're trying to live in a good, whether it's like Coach Haig said, 15 to 25 degrees, because that's going to produce the highest average and most base hits, it's about chasing consistent hard contact as well. So that 10% measurement gives us the ability, okay, are they getting it on a line more often, but are they also still striking it and maintaining good quality of contact as well? And then just going on the spin, to touch on that, it's basically meaning like you can contact the ball at 90 miles an hour and hit it at a 25 degree launch angle, which is going to get good carry. But if I'm going down steep to the ball and creating too much spin, it's actually going to cut down carry, and there's a chance that ball gets ran down rather than going out. So that's why when we talk about having a flat swing that works up and through the zone as opposed to straight down and cutting the baseball, it can just help with that exit velo measurement to maximize carry.
You got anything to touch on that, Adam?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, like you mentioned, launch angle swing. Everybody's got to understand that as soon as you hit the ball, you're going to have a launch angle to it. If it's a bunt, it has a launch angle. And I think everybody gets so caught up into launch angle means make the ball go up. Well, ground balls happen too, and they have a negative launch angle. So I think that's the first thing that people get confused with is launch angle only happens on certain balls. No, it happens on all of them. So that's one thing I think they need to understand, as well as just I think we can all agree hitting the ball hard in the air is what's going to win. Now, when I say in the air, I'm talking about a line drive's in the air. It's not on the ground. So if you can make that be your game plan and your goal, and kind of let the ground balls be the backup plan that you're a fast runner, then that's kind of the approach you're going to have, as opposed to the other way around of I'm trying to outrun ground balls for my whole career. Because as you get higher and higher, you guys will know and understand that it just doesn't work anymore. So I think launch angle, it gets confused because it's not a swing, like you both had mentioned. Y'all made great points about what you're looking for, because you still have to hit the ball hard. Just because you hit launch angles, those turn into routine fly balls, you still have to have some juice behind them. So kind of figure out what hitter you are, like hey, to find your peak, and then work from there. So if you're 115 pounds and you can't hit the ball over 300 feet, then you don't need to try to. So let's knock our angles down to more of that 5 to 10 range. So where you're hitting hard line drives that are going to the outfield grass, maybe it's right over the shortstop's head. That's where you get to start at and then kind of work your way up through it. And the last thing I want to touch on with that is I think it's very important that you don't – a lot of people will say, well, launch angle, I understand it, but my kids aren't ready for it. And so they'll say, once they get to that age, then I'll teach them how to do it, as opposed to helping them understand what we're at and what is on TV and what the big league guys are talking about, and knowing that they can get there. But let's not have, well, when you're going to swing like this when you're 12 to 13, 14, but once you get in the weight room and get some strength on you, then we're going to change your whole swing to power hitter swing. And I think that's the big thing, is just build the fundamentals from there, and then use the measurements and Rapsodos to measure things, not to base everything solely off measurements. And I think that's where people get a lot of confused is, well, the measurements say I'm doing this, why am I not getting more base hits? Well, it's just measuring what you're able to do, but can you consistently do it? And that's why I think you touched on it earlier, consistently hitting the ball, barreling up the ball is what's going to give you the best results possible. So the launch angle, the main thing coming away from it is launch angle is a reading. Every ball has a reading. Don't get so caught up into I'm worried about launch angle, launch angle, launch angle.
Yeah, I
also
think,
want to touch
so let me just kind of, equate that to pitching. I think it's, radar guns give us a number, but the number doesn't mean you can pitch or you can get people out. So I think, when we talk about launch angle, like Adam just said, it's a number. It's something we use to help us become better hitters. But it's not, hey, if you're within this launch angle, that means you can really hit. It's just one component to the overall process. And I think if you guys could kind of maybe just touch on, because obviously being able to understand or even not necessarily understand, but to get launch angle readings, a lot of these young kids, maybe they don't have access to, a lot of this data. So, one of the questions we just had in the chat was, advise the best metrics for, youth players and younger players. Just talk a little bit about, if you're not able to find out exactly what your launch angles are, maybe what's an alternative way to get a sense of, if their swing is efficient.
One of the biggest things I love to do with hitters is target practice. Just because more exit velocity, yes, is important, but being able to have constant awareness of our barrel and being able to manipulate our body, especially at a young age, they're just starting to find their bodies and kind of really figure out how they move and how they work. Now, one of the biggest things I like to do is start off low and hard the other way, and as we start pushing away from opposite field, start creating loft. The reason I like that is because it shows signs that even though you don't have the numbers, it shows signs that no matter where you're hitting it, your barrel path and swing path is connected. So it's less necessarily of trying to hit the ball as hard as we can, but just show signs of manipulation and connection in a swing. It's one of the things I like doing.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome, Maddie, and to kind of go off of the ability to, start low line drive the other way and work around the field and slowly start to elevate as you go. We call that around the world. Also just working different contact points too. Can I handle the pitch with depth and hit it on a line the other way, and then slowly even working to the opposite field still move my contact point out in front, because naturally as we get that contact point more out in front, we should elevate if our swing path is correct. But again, making that focus being on hard, consistent contact from, depth on the plate towards the middle, and then more out in front, adjusting our timing and where we're trying to get our contact points at. But then the other thing, going off of D2 college baseball, where we don't always have the Rapsodo side of things and all that, lucky enough we got it our last season there. But one thing guys can do, man, is you can put up some strings in your cages. That works just as well. Start with the straight line of 0 with the tee height that you feel is about thigh to belt high for guys. And then put up, 0 degrees we went to 8 to, I believe, 17 to 25. And we taught guys ability to hit the ball hard. They were trying to hunt those levels, whether it was in their tee work or their front toss and into BP. So just because you don't have the readings that spit it out to you doesn't mean you can't get creative and make them that way as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you touched on that because not everybody has access to the technology stuff. And so now I grew up, I never got to hit off anything like that. I'm sure you guys didn't as well. It wasn't around. So I think it's important. Number one, the feel is so important. When you catch a ball in the barrel. I don't have to necessarily say, how hard was that? You'll know as a hitter, I got it on the barrel or I got jammed, I hit it off the end. So the feel, get the feel part back in there as well. As you mentioned, the launch angle ropes, I've seen those be used in the cages. And if you want to use kind of like Haig was saying, put up targets, well, I've done it before, 2 L screens, combined them, and you have to hit it over the L screens. And I call it the Great Wall of Ground Balls. So now you're working on having a good launch angle that gets over a line drive in the cage, because when the cages are, let's say, 45 feet, everything's going to look great in there. So if you're really wanting to work on, let's start low to kind of get going and then work our way up to where's the gaps at now necessarily. And I think a great part of that is using the ropes or going back to just knowing, hey, I don't need a radar gun to tell me that I hit that ball well. I know very good that, especially with the wood bat, I love guys with wood bats using that, whether they're young or old, because they'll know instantly.
Yeah, good stuff. Can you guys touch on just a little bit, this is a little bit off script, but just as we get into this, just in terms of because I know we've got a lot of young players on that are listening in, just in terms of guys that are able to, the young hitters, when they go into the cage, and whether it's tee work or they're starting their round of batting practice, if they don't have some kind of clear direction from their coaches as to their sequence of rounds or whatever they're trying to achieve in that practice session, can you guys just talk about in general what you think would be helpful for these guys in terms of their approach to batting practice?
Who wants that one? Anybody?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and touch on it. We'll change it up a little bit. All right, so I think the biggest thing is, number one, you have to have a plan. Don't go in there just to swing, because you're not getting anything accomplished. And I think that happens a ton, because kids would say all the time that, hey, I hit 120 baseballs today, and I'll ask them, what did you work on? Well, I just hit off the tee. And so you have to have a plan of what you're working on. The tee's a great tool to use to move the strike zone around. I think a lot of kids use it to warm up, as opposed to using it the right way to kind of build their swing for different pitch locations. So build a routine that works for you. And more importantly, I think a lot of people will try to be somebody else, or they're always comparing them to somebody else, as opposed to what are your and what are your weaknesses as you. And that's what you've got to continue to work on and build your game. If you're a 1-2 leadoff type hitter, and if you're a bull that needs to drive the ball in the gaps and needs to drive runs in. So know who you are. Have a game plan before you step in the cage. And then after that, let's start off on the tee, but don't use it to warm up. Use it to work the different pitch locations, because when you're hitting in the game, they're not throwing it right down the middle, setting it on a tee for you. They're trying to get you out. So you better train on that, and then you work it into your front toss and whatever you want to go. But I'll let you guys kind of hit on that.
You want to go, Maddie? What do you got?
So one of the best uses I love for tees. By the way, we're over 100 people, Jack. You're bad. The tee is, I love using it, and a lot of guys do use it for starting off where their depth needs to be and controlling the timing. It's because when we get in a game setting, if we can't have control of that and start slow, the natural instinct in a game is with anxiety and performance pressure, which is all natural. But it helps us kind of compose ourselves and bring us back to the spot we need to start at. So if we're trying to specialize our swings and we don't have a foundation with it, then it's pretty tough to just jump from straight to an atmosphere where we're sped up a lot. So I think trusting the depth in a sense that we're not afraid to cover behind the plate and let the ball travel and then work from there. And then just focusing also as well with body positioning off a tee. If we can't control our body off a tee, we should probably stay there until we get comfortable enough and we get enough body awareness to where we can start having live reads. And even when we get started on a BP session and people are throwing to us, we still have to continue that work with trusting depth and control and tempo and timing off a live setting. So it's really, one, it's giving yourself feedback on how you're feeling that day, because some days we just feel terrible. And it's just part of it. And it's embracing that and understanding we're going to have those days, but bringing us back to a certain point to where we can get back to neutral, I like to call it, or control what we can control. And we can, I guess, get rid of the fear of getting jammed or trusting our depth back off a tee.
Yeah, that was awesome. And, touched on that. I think it goes back a little bit too to, like Matty Haig just touched on having that routine, before a game or when your swing's not feeling quite right, to get back to, like you said, having that positivity and filling your swing out to where you can have success. So, having those few drills or BP rounds that allow you to get comfortable and ready to compete. I love that he talked about handling it with depth to start, making late swing decisions, even though we're not trying to get beat at all. We're not trying to be late on a pitch, but being able to launch later gives you better time for swing decisions. The other thing I want to touch on too is just when guys, are searching for their routines, and learning new drills, getting exposed to different hitting coaches. It's okay to have a routine that makes you feel good, and you need one of those, but you also need to be okay with being challenged and adding new things in. I think that's one aspect that just seeing a lot of high school hitters recruiting them and even getting around guys their freshman year in college when we bring them in. They were really afraid of being challenged and being uncomfortable, but as we all know as hitters, that's our job just about every single night unless we're really feeling it. That's one thing I would challenge, young hitters to be okay with, hey, if this feels like it fits my swing, but it's challenging, keep doing it, man. Because those guys that can challenge themselves at a young age and learn not only to handle failure, but learn how to adjust their swing and make the proper adjustment to have success when it is challenging, are going to be really good hitters.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome stuff. That's what I always think one of the best parts of like going to like a major league game is watching batting practice and watching those hitters go through their rounds and, control the barrel and hit the ball the other way in their first round. And, then they work the gaps and then they kind of let it fly in their last rounds and start launching balls. It always was impressive for me to be able to watch that. But no, that's good stuff. And I think the takeaway for a lot of these young hitters was mainly just, hey, have a purpose with your swings, guys, especially in batting practice. I mean, that's your chance to work on your craft, and it's just important to have a purpose, because I think we all have seen young hitters kind of jump in the cage and just kind of take meaningless swings, and they're just there's no real thought process behind what they're doing. But we're getting a lot of questions, and we'll get to those. We'll get to those a little bit, but just talking a little bit, I think hearing from you guys on, obviously you talk about mechanics, hitting mechanics in your swing, and all the parts to the swing. But can y'all talk a little bit just about approach? If you want to touch on the physical side or just the mental side. Obviously, hitting is really, really tough, and I know from the pitching side, we just we tell pitchers, attack the strike zone, get after the hitters, they're going to get themselves out. I mean, it's really hard to hit. And so can you guys talk a little bit about just approach, whichever direction you want to take it, physical approach, just kind of mental approach to hitting, just kind of take it wherever you want.
Oof. So I think it all comes back again to knowing yourself and individuality. The approach, and this can vary very differently for certain types of players. So controlled aggression is something I like to talk about a lot. I would say it's a little more old school is seeing a lot of pitches, and it's preached about more now of being aggressive on pitch one, just because what the numbers say and the success rates. So I think starting off, just going in the box, one, very simply, ready to get our best and most efficient swing off every pitch. Doesn't matter what it is. And that can be interpreted many different ways, what a person's best swing is. There has to kind of have some type of toughness, or for the Blue Jays, we call it fortitude. And that's being able to have the ability, maybe the first 2 strikes, we're going to take a chance and really trying to get into one, but then able to control back with 2 strikes and focus more on controlling the barrel. So some type of 2-strike approach. Ryan, do you remember the numbers we saw the other day from the Zoom? Like 50% of at-bats end with 2 strikes?
End up 2 strikes. So, yeah.
Which is a crazy amount. I mean, that blew my mind when I heard that statistic. I mean, that's so –
Just quick to throw out to all the viewers and you hitters out there, if 52% of ABs get to 2-strike hitting, how often are you working on 2-strike hitting?
Right.
No one wants to do it. We throw the round in occasionally. You work on it in the game, but I'm not saying you got to work 50% of your work on 2 strikes, but if you're going to be a really good hitter, you better have an approach and an adjustment, and you better be comfortable hitting there.
Yeah. I think kind of going off that too, with 2 strikes, less than 2 strikes, we're trying to maximize our big, athletic, torque-filled movements. And 2 strikes, we have to have the ability to, let's say, depending on the swing language, but control or gather back or control or move forward. We have to have the adjustability to both. So the damage swing and then the one to control and focus more on control.
Taking that, talking approach, I love that Jack said on the pitching end that, hey, we're going to try to get ahead early. We're going to attack guys and work from there. So especially with you young hitters out there, even at the high school level, man, majority of guys are going to attack with the fastball. So for me, it's about getting in the box, ready to hit, and being on time for the fastball. And don't get me wrong, I'm a guy who really enjoys hitters that can game plan and understand when to sit pitches, when to sell out for a breaking pitch, because the odds tell him that that's what he's going to throw, depending on the situation or what he did previous swing or previous AB. But for me on approach, it's starting with getting on time for that fastball, because if you think about it, I can't name many hitters in even pro baseball where you go, man, he couldn't handle the fastball, but he could really hit the changeup, and he was a really good hitter. So it starts there. Yeah, exactly.
No, that's great stuff. And I mean, to kind of piggyback off that is, I always tell hitters is if it's a really good breaking ball, you're not hitting it anyway. The ones you're hitting are the mistake ones. So if you're going up there looking for a mistake, you better have a reason why you're doing it. But it all goes back to what you both guys covered of hunt the fastball and hunt it as soon as you step in the batter's box. I think a lot of kids will get in there to try and see what it looks like. And by that time, they may have just taken the best pitch of the whole at bat. So that's got to get out of your head right away. And I think from a standpoint too is watch the game, watch how they're pitching guys, watch is his breaking ball going in the dirt consistently will eliminate that pitch because he can't throw it for a strike. Watch guys that are kind of similar to you from, if you're a leadoff lefty, kind of watch throughout the lineup. Hey, I'm the 7-hole, but I'm a lefty. Let's see how he pitches this guy to try to get a game plan together. But approach is very important because it's not a swing that goes up there and creates good hitters. They have approaches that go with it where they know what they're looking for in certain counts or just looking to gaining advantage. They're already starting off. There's 4 balls and there's 3 strikes. So if you take that first one right down the middle, now you're in a big hole. And like Ryan was saying, now you're going to get to those 2 strikes. No matter whether you like it or not, you're going to get there at some point. So you start practicing it and come up with a 2-strike approach. I think a lot of 2-strike approach is a mentality of me versus that guy, and I'm not going to lose. And if he gets me, all right, I'll walk back to the dugout knowing I gave him up a fight, as opposed to I think too many youth hitters just give up right away when they get to 2 strikes, or they look at the umpire, or they look at dad in the stands, and they're like, oh, here we go again. I'm back to 2 strikes, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to bear in there. I'm going to do what I do. If it's choking up, I'm a big believer. If you get 2 strikes, go ahead and choke up some. I mean, the best hitter of all times, in my opinion, Barry Bonds, choked up all the time. So if it worked for him, it can work for a lot of guys. Have an approach where one of my favorite ones, I think, is kind of as you get older in ball, when the umpire's a little bit better, you can shrink the strike zone. Too many guys are chasing that strike 3 in the dirt and running down the line saying I should have never swung at that, where maybe if they shrunk the strike zone with 2 strikes as opposed to widen it, they would lay off a whole lot more pitches where you might get a lot more backwards Ks from looking. But I think in the long run, you're going to strike out less and less because you're going to lay off chasing that ball in the dirt. And last thing is, most of the time when it does get to 2 strikes, I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm pretty sure they're going to try to put you away more with the off speed than the fastball. And so now that goes back to eliminating that pitch or shrink the zone. So when I see the break, oh, this one's in the dirt. Now I have a whole lot more better at bat going out throughout the process. So maybe I can get back to even to a 3-2 count and have a good idea that he's coming back with the fastball.
Good stuff. I have something to add a little on the 2 strikes and practicing 2 strikes. I think subconsciously when we practice it, we get rid of fear and anxiety hitting with 2 strikes. And when we start getting comfortable with doing it and we apply it in our program, in our workouts, basically what we're doing, no matter what we say, we've all been in the batter's box. When 2 strike happens, we do have some type of fear and anxiety. So pushing that to the side so we can free our minds up to work, essentially, is kind of what's going on.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I know from, like, again, I'm listening to you guys obviously talk about hitting, and of course from my perspective as a pitcher, you know, obviously like what Adam said, I think I see it a lot. And if we're teaching pitchers to try to work ahead in the count and, you know, establish your fastball, then when from the flip side of that, hitters, when you get in the box, like, be ready to hit. You know, I think if you're going to give me strike one on a fastball that's right there, that's, you know, a very hittable pitch for you, and you're going to let me, you know, jump ahead 0-1, like, I mean, hey, that's fine. I appreciate that, you know. So I just think those guys that are aggressive and jump in there, and if they get a pitch to hit on that first pitch, man, they're ready to go. But do you just kind of –
question. Do you think that there's drawback from high school coaches these kids are facing of, like, the emphasis on seeing a lot of pitches? So naturally when they're telling, hey, get deep in a count, that's probably taking away some type of aggressiveness with the youth kids, right? I know that's something we have to battle with guys even at the pro level. It's okay if we swing and make a extremely good, efficient swing on the first pitch. Even if we get out, if we hit it hard, it's all right. And I think sometimes coaches instill passiveness in kids without even knowing it. Do you think that's a certain issue there?
I do. I think it's a good point. I think it's one of the beautiful parts about baseball is, you know, each inning is different. Obviously, each at bat is going to be different. You know, I'm going to pitch the first inning different than I'm going to pitch, you know, the 6th or 7th. You know, the situations in the game, obviously, I think dictate, you know, how I'm going to pitch a guy, and I think on the flip side, it dictates what you're looking for when you get in the box in those situations. You know, if the bases are loaded and I'm facing the 3-hole hitter in a 1-run game, well, I'm going to pitch him a lot more careful than, you know, in the first inning where I'm just maybe go, you know, let's go, baby, man, you know, man to man, let's go. I'm going to come after you, see what you can do with nobody on in first inning, you know. So I just think, yeah, I think you probably have some coaches that maybe have that, you know, mentality of seeing more pitches. And, you know, I think maybe early in the game for some hitters, maybe that's you know, leadoff hitter or, you know, your 2-hole guy or whatever the case is, that maybe that has some value. But, you know, I think you definitely make a good point with what coaches may have their hitters doing. But anybody, Ryan or Adam, you have anything else to add to that? Okay, we can. Can you guys see the questions?
Yeah. Shout out to Hunter Mentz, our hitting coordinator, by the way.
Is he on here?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Do we want to bring him on as a panelist?
No, he doesn't want it.
Oh.
He's nervous.
Okay.
I'm sure he does these all day.
Yeah. So we got some questions, and like I said, we'll try to get to all of them. What I'll do is I'll read a couple of these, and then maybe just call on one of you guys to answer. But one of the guys says, "What are your thoughts on the swing rail?" I don't know what the swing rail is, but do you guys know one of you guys know what the swing rail is?
Nope.
I'm almost positive I know what it is. That's if I'm right, it's the tee that basically sets an angle for vertical bat angle when you're entering the zone. Can someone that asked that question chime in if that's correct? Or the swing
Oh,
rail?
the one with the ball, and then there's two things on the side it's for tilt, right?
It's either that one or it's the swing rail might be the one that's connected to the shoulder, like the connection one.
No idea.
There's so many tools out there now, man. It's hard to keep track of them all. Okay, yeah, the one that attaches to the shoulder. I have seen that one. Actually had a guy in college ball this past year who used it a lot. I'll go 2 points on it. I do like it that I think it keeps the barrel in a good connected position for guys, especially for guys that get away from their body with the barrel. When we lose that thing early out and around, not a lot of guys can be real good hitters doing that. The one thing I will say to be wary on that is it is all about when we release our barrel and getting it into the zone in a certain amount of time. So if you're just going to continue to keep that thing connected and spin, and then release it, you'll run into some problems as far as just getting really shoulder heavy and spinning off the baseball. So as long as you get that timing right, when you get onto the plate with that barrel, releasing it through the center of the field, I think it's a good tool. But if you want to stay connected as long as you can and sit and spin with it, it can create some issues.
Okay, good stuff. This is a good question, and try to get Adam got kicked off here. We try to get him back on, but
Me and you, Haig.
yeah.
Let's get it done.
Todd Sharp asked the question: if the two-strike approach is a consistent swing, then why not use it for all counts?
Well, I can touch on that. So a two-strike swing is, think about it more of control our momentum, control our rhythm, shrink our movements. So the guys, as a hitter, what we're trying to do, we're trying to have that fine line of big athletic movements, okay, stretching our forward move out. I should probably go into the phases of the swing first, but we'll stick with this. We're trying to stretch those moves out so it gives our barrel time, one, to pick up speed and momentum, okay, so we have a little more force going into the ball. Simply put, when we have two strikes, we shrink that, so we're sacrificing a little power, we're sacrificing a little momentum, and we're sacrificing some bigger moves to feel more control. So basically, you can hit the ball, not always. Of course, some guys will still clip balls with two strikes, and it'll run out, and some guys don't have a two-strike approach. But you just shrink those movements to basically sacrifice momentum, rhythm, controlness to get a little more juice, in a nutshell.
Okay, good stuff. All right, here's a question from one of our Knights coaches, Coach Jay Hodges, who's listening in. He asked the question: what do you feel is the most important mechanical element in the swing, if you had to pick one?
Oh my gosh.
I'll let Ryan go for that one.
Man, tough.
That's tough.
That's really tough. If I had to pick one, because, I mean, we've seen guys that have different setups, gather moves, loads, all that, strides. I think guys that can consistently get on plane with the baseball and maintain that throughout, without being long, early, good swing plane through the zone, I think would be the most. So it's swing plane for me. I mean, it's timing as far as I would go with this.
Though.
I know. So it's swing plane for me. Yeah, guys that can get in the zone quick and on plane and match it and stay through, I think have a lot of chance to have barrel consistency and hit the ball with more consistency. So, hey, what do you got? You got to answer this one too.
Okay. How long do we want to go with this answer, Jack?
1 minute.
So I would say I would agree 100% with Ryan. So if I'm thinking mechanically, I would want a guy with a high and tight, compact turn of the barrel. Reason being that gets away from pushing our barrel, so it creates that miss-hit turbo spin balls opposite field or steep high spin ground balls pull side. So if a guy can physically, and I think Hunter's watching this, he does this a lot. he thinks about if a hitter can consistently turn his barrel around his shoulder and create depth in the zone, okay, he can cover a lot of pitches. He has higher margins of error to manipulate the barrel. And usually if we're entering the zone with a turn of the barrel, our lines can stay longer, or our barrel can stay through at a more consistent basis if we weren't that way. So what that tells us is it gives us bigger margins of error to mess up, and we can still stay on pitches even though we could be fooled sometimes, to let our athleticism take over and react. Is that a minute?
Yeah, good job. That's good.
50 seconds.
Here's a good question from Barrett Newman. And I'll let you guys handle this, but what are the biggest things that college and major league scouts look for in an elite hitter?
We actually had this debate the other day. You want this? Well, I can tell you. So physicality has something to do with it, and the ability to make contact. The reason being, once we get them in systems, at least I'm speaking for the Blue Jays, once we go and we know a hitter can consistently make contact. There he is.
Yeah, Adam's back.
There he is, right in the middle of my my answer. The ranges of fastballs, high velocity, low velocity. If we consistently make contact, then we can stretch movements out or add some more athletic movements to gain that power aspect. You see it all the time, where guys in the minor leagues don't necessarily have that much power, but they develop it over time. And usually the guys that have that have a high contact rate.
Yeah, I'm going contact and the ability to adjust as a hitter.
Yeah.
Time on earth, getting stronger, getting older is going to help you hit the ball harder, even though we can make some swing changes and swing adjustments to, I think, help exit velo. There's no doubt that that's possible, but being a college recruiter, the guy couldn't make contact very often. He couldn't adjust very well and make good swing decisions. Probably not a guy that I'm going to recruit. And we hit a lot of extra base hits and home runs at the place I was at. So it's not like we didn't put emphasis at hitting the ball hard. But, yeah, makes contact a lot and can adjust.
Yeah, I got something to that as well. I think so. Basically, athleticism as well, right? Being able to adjust our body position, being able to control our body so we can manipulate and work on the adjustability part. I think that's another thing that plays into it as well.
Good stuff. We're getting some really good questions. I'm going to throw, like I said, we'll try to get to all of them if we don't get too long. But it's a great question from Hunter Mintz that says, if you had a young child who was just getting into baseball and wanted them to be a really good hitter, which hitter would you have them watch the most? So we'll go to Adam Heisler first, and then we'll go around, and each of you guys can answer that.
Great.
That's our boss, by the way, Adam. Be nice.
Hey, I'm going to say Ronald Acuna. And when I watch Ronald Acuna Jr., it's simple, and he doesn't have a gigantic leg lift. It's not a big mover. It's very simple and easy. He uses all the fields. He would probably be one I would watch because the athleticism is there. And I think Matt nailed it on the head. I don't know what the question was, but I'm pretty sure it was about what do you look for in hitters. And I think athleticism is the biggest part. It starts right there. How well do you move? And then it goes back to the plate discipline, putting the barrel on the ball. But I would definitely say Ronald Acuna. And if you're lefty, just to throw out some names out there for a lefty side, Braves, and watch Freddie Freeman. He's another one. He's not a real big mover. He takes pride in two-strike hitting. He doesn't strike out a lot. Every at-bat I watch of his, it's a professional at-bat where he's got a plan and he stays with it throughout, and he's going to fight and he competes. What about you guys?
Big Braves guy. I love it, man.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
I got to play the audience.
I've been a Braves fan since I could watch ball, man. But I'm not going to go Chipper Jones here. I'm going to go Anthony Rendon. That guy over the last two seasons, and especially last year, man, just shows so many qualities of a good hitter to me. I mean, the ability, like I talked about before, to adjust. I love that Adam just hit on simple moves. I think Anthony Rendon has one of the most simple, moves with his load and his stride and what he does at the plate. Has a two-strike approach, can extend counts, can foul pitches off. You saw it in the at-bat with Verlander in the playoffs, man. Fouled off 96 4 times in a row up in the zone, and then eventually got the mistake pitch and got the job done. So that's my guy. And then lefty, any power lefty hitter. If he's going to be a lefty, he's going to run the ball out of the yard. So.
Oh, man.
It's Matty Haig, right? You're watching yourself.
YouTube.
No. Guys, we want to talk about athleticism. I like that. All right. I'm actually going to go, and not because I know Jack works for the Dodgers, but I'm going to go Justin Turner. I know, even though I'll go hit with my lefty. Justin Turner, big athletic movements, red hair, super controlled movements, stays on the ball, his margin of error is so big by the way he can manipulate. And I'm going to go Cody Bellinger as well. Again, not because you work for the Dodgers, Jack, because I love Cody Bellinger's barrel pivot. And I think it's extremely hard to do what he does. And he doesn't get phased by any velocity range.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I don't know if, the best hitter to watch as a young hitter would be Cody Bellinger, but
No.
I was going to say from just an excitement standpoint and getting your money's worth, and he's hard to walk away from the TV when he's on. You just, it's almost like watching Michael Jordan play. It's like, man, when Bellinger's up, you just want to watch the AB. But he's definitely trying to do damage. But let's see. This is a good question for our young hitters from one of our youth coaches, Kerry Moe. Are you thinking at all about mechanics when you get in the box? So when you're in a game at bat and you get into the box, are you thinking about mechanics?
Who wants it?
No. To keep it simple. Yeah, no, you can't. The game's too hard to think. It moves way too fast. You can't think about mechanics. And I think one thing that kind of just drives me insane is when you hear maybe a coach yelling down the third base box trying to tell him to do stuff mechanics. Hey, get your elbow up, get your hands up, get your foot down, and there's just so much going on. And by the time it's over, the kids walking back to the dugout just wondering what the heck just happened. So when you get in there, you've got to trust all of your work that you've done in the game or in the batting cage, pregame BP, flips, toss, whatever it was. You have to trust all that. And then when the game comes, you just let it happen. You have the approach of what pitch you're looking for, and then you go up there and let it happen. Because if you walk up to the plate thinking too much, you're done in this game. And I'm just going to keep it simple like that. No, you can't think about mechanics.
I think I switched more towards if I do think something within the swing, I think it's geared more towards mental cues. And if I'm really feeling terrible, I'll think one thing mechanically. For instance, and it won't be in depth, it will be very general. For instance, I really want to feel my barrel retract. I really there'll be something along those lines. A mental cue I like using in a game, and a lot of guys do it, are target hitting. So they'll pick something on the field. Let's say the pitcher is throwing backwards to the guys. He doesn't have nothing that can beat you. They'll pick a sign out in the opposite field gap just to help train their minds to physically, I'm going to throw all my mechanics or my body in that direction. And then if there's a guy that's throwing a little hard and I know that I got to get the head out because he can beat me, I will maybe think pull side high. Just in a nutshell, it gets me going, gets my barrel going, because if there is any sense of in-depth mechanics, usually what happens, it usually leads to passiveness. And then once we start getting passive at the plate, we get all up in our minds and our domes. So I think just being able to keep it simple with target hitting. And if you are going to do something mechanically, I do know a couple people that do, but it's not very often. Make sure it's very general. Don't get outside of that dome of yours and let all that hard work you put in before show in the game and happen naturally.
Love it. Thinking body parts locks you up.
Yeah.
Simple. Whether it's, keeping my hands inside, back hip towards the pitcher, it's just those simple things. But if you start thinking body parts and what I'm doing exactly with them, you're going to lock yourself up.
Yeah, and I like that you hit on that because earlier you mentioned Rendon was your favorite, Ryan. And when you watch him hit, how relaxed does he look? He controls his breathing amazing. And that's something that doesn't get talked about enough. people will be, hey, what are they looking at on their bat? And it's a visualization, a relaxation, and like a mental approach. And I'm glad you hit on that, Matt, because some guys need to have that little one or two things, and everybody's different. And even if it's something that I need to step out, look at my bat, take a deep breath. All right, let's get back in there. Then that's yours. That's what works for you. And I would challenge a lot of young hitters to try that, because a lot of them don't breathe. They forget to breathe, and they forget to relax and do the best they can. But watch Anthony Rendon hit, and you'll tell me he looks like he's playing wiffle ball in the backyard.
Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff, man. I know in my short hitting career in college, when I couldn't hit, one of the things I remember, and I think it applies to hitters and pitchers, was, you do your cage work or you do your bullpen work. And he used to tell us, hey, man, batting practice and, during the week, you work on your swing, you work on your delivery, but on game day, it's just time to compete. That's when you get in there and just straight up compete. It's not the time to be thinking about, mechanics and body movements. Just get in there and find a way. So, Jimmy McCarthy, our youth director, asked this. He said, what is y'all's thoughts on working your tee work almost all the time within the white of the plate? He said, Travis Swaggerty made this point to me that focus on the areas of the plate that his highest batting averages are. Said he's not going to work on the tee on a pitch belt high, 5 balls outside the dish. I see a lot of coaches spending a ton of time with the tee set up 6 inches off the plate. So what are your thoughts on that in terms of tee work and moving the tee around? What are your thoughts on that? We'll start with let Ryan answer that.
It's a little tough. I would say you've got to focus on the plate more times than not, and he's right on that. I'm not going to majority of the time put a baseball down at the knees and 2 balls off the plate. The one thing I will say that is it could be good just for some over-exaggeration for guys. But Pedroia used to do a drill where he would really put a pitch at the top of the zone, inner black, and even sometimes out of the zone, and would work on his path, working inside and driving a line drive up the center of the field. He just got his swing where he needed to go path-wise. There's been plenty of guys where we would go ball down at the knee, off the edge of the plate, and we're going to visualize slider spin, swinging our legs, and just moving that ball in play the other way. Kind of give that guy that visual if he struggles with that pitch without being able to recreate it. So I agree with you. I think work different zones, work different depths, and stay on the plate a lot, but it's right for the hitter. It's right for the hitter, man.
Yeah, and with Travis, he was a first-round draft pick 2 years ago. So I think from an advanced level, maybe you can get away because you'll have your heat map charts that tell you where you're good at and where you're bad at. So from a youth standpoint, I love putting it all over. I call it the top 4 corners of the zone. Work up and in, up and away, down and in, and then work from there, because these youth pitchers, I don't know, a lot of the times they may not know where it's going. So I need to work, and not necessarily off the plate, but let's put it out there on the corner so I can learn how to handle this pitch when it comes. Because if I'm always just looking for that one that is supposed to be my pitch and I don't get it, I'm going to be going to the dugout a lot of the times and not being able to put a swing on the ball. So I wouldn't spend too much time just putting it like way off the plate, like you had mentioned, Ryan, like unless you're really over exaggerating something. But I think working the 4 parts of the zone is key to try to build a swing that can get to those pitches. And then as well as you're building like visualization memories of this is what I need to do to get to it, just like I was off the tee, or keep my hands inside, whatever it is from that standpoint.
So I think you do need to work different areas of the zone. I would be careful of pushing off the plate. I know that, like Ryan was talking about, exaggeration is a good idea sometimes. It all goes down to we don't need to ever really put ourselves in a box. We need to practice it all, and that includes middle, belt high. Because if we don't practice it, research does show that we start losing it. So we do need to practice it all, and especially one of the importance of moving the ball around, because it helps us practice body position, and especially like pelvic positioning on certain locations of the plate, and the feeling that it creates with a hitter. So try it all. Honestly, I would be careful with getting extremely off the plate, but if if we start developing some bad habits just because we're trying to cover 3 inches off the plate to 5 inches off the plate, I mean, that's kind of that would be counterproductive in my opinion sometimes. But there's a time and place for everything,
Okay, that's good stuff. Here's a good question from Addison Ainsworth, who's a 221 outfielder at Catholic High. Really good young hitter. He said, what is the biggest factor to the mental thought process while at the plate? What is the main thought while at the plate? I know it kind of goes back to what we were touched on a little bit with mechanics, but just in terms of thoughts at the plate, the mental side. Go ahead, Matt Haig.
Do damage, man. Go up there and be aggressive, and go up there with confidence from pitch one. I mean, that's honest. Like, you want to make it simple, go up there like you're swimming with some intent.
No, I like that. Yeah, keep it easy, and confidence is the biggest thing in this game. And you've got to walk up to that plate knowing that you're better than the pitcher, and even if he gets you sometimes, it's all right. Like, it's part of it. Just put yourself a good at bat together. But I like that. Go up there ready to hit, do damage, and then if you get to 2 strikes, now let's fight. But besides that, don't overcomplicate yourself on, well, he's got this slider, he's got this spitball, he's got a splitter, no, don't overcomplicate it. Just trust that what you've worked on and let it put it in use.
Okay, good stuff. I think we lost Ryan there. I don't know where he's out there in Idaho somewhere.
Only the internet in Louisiana is working.
Here's a good question from a young hitter, Alex Walsh. I think it's a good question. What is the best way to maintain your swing when other people may be trying to change the type of hitter you are?
Oof.
So I think, let me just say this. I think, sometimes, as young players in today's environment where you play for your high school program and then you have hitting coaches or you have pitching coaches, that instruct you on the side, and then you have a travel ball organization that you play for, you're coming into contact with a lot of different coaches. And I do think it's a really good question, because everybody has different opinions on, what a player should be doing. What advice would you have, Matt and Adam, on that? If let's just say, to just make an example, let's just say you're a guy that has some power, you have strength, you can do damage, you have the ability to drive the baseball, but maybe your coach wants to try to cut down your swing and make you more of a, contact type, gap to gap, put the ball in play kind of guy. What advice would you have on how to handle that situation, and what's the best way to maintain?
So I have a little history with Alex. Actually, we do some lessons together. That's tough, man, honestly. And I know we've talked about it a little. I think the biggest thing is being responsible for your career and asking why. Asking the why is so huge, just because even as a player, we get in the habit sometimes of just being yes man, or just shaking our head yes. So fully asking why you're asked to do something. And if you disagree, have an open dialogue, really. That's part of a coach's job, is to cater to his players. So I think that just having useful dialogue with him, to where you don't get too defensive, but just find out the why. Very simply put. And that can be tough, just because some players can be in certain situations where they do have to impress the coach. And that's unfortunate at times. So I think that being able to disagree with the coach and having it in a healthy manner, it's all part of the game. Players disagree with us. If a person presents a player with information, they should have a good reason to back it up. So just not putting guys out there just to do what they want. Coaches need to have reasoning behind what they're feeding players.
No,
Does that answer that a little?
Yeah, that's awesome stuff. I mean, asking why is, I think, how this whole new age of hitting stuff actually started. I think finally players have started asking, why are we doing these things that we're being taught this, but you're watching guys do other things? Like, why are we being taught this? And I think that's what started the whole thing, like when Josh Donaldson came on and did his segment with MLB baseball, and it got everybody talking about it. Like, wait, what's going on? But ask why. But when you're asking why, be respectable about it. Don't. Yeah. Well, I'm not going to do that. My hitting coach says I can't do that. I think that's the biggest thing where athletes run into trouble and they kind of play like the middleman. Like, my guy I trust that I hit with a lot is telling me to do one thing, and then my high school coach is telling me to do the total other. So now they end up getting in their own head and they're not being successful with it. I think they have to, when they're asking why, be respectful about it. Another big thing is don't act like you know more than some of these coaches, like if it's a high school coach, because they will get offense to that. And so don't come in dropping barrel turn, barrel play, and all this stuff if they've never heard of it. Tell them what you're trying to do. But ultimately, if your coach asks you, say you're in the cage and he says you're hitting the top of the net too much, if you want to, you can hit a line drive to the back of the net. And sometimes you just have to do it just to please them and move on. But that's the easiest way. Otherwise, you're going to fight this whole thing. And what I'll say is if you're hitting, nobody says anything to you. Think about all the times you're doing well. It's always, oh, man, you're killing it, keep it up. But as soon as they see a little peak in the struggle or a drop down in the performances, when they want to, hey, let's go try this. Hey, let's try that. I'm going to let you hit like that until you start to fail. I've heard that one before. And then we're going to go back to the way I want you to. And so now the kid thinks, if I don't hit 700, like I'm going to be in a big trouble here. My coach isn't going to play me anymore. So I think asking why is a big thing and building a relationship with them and try to help them. Maybe don't try to teach them everything like, hey, watch this video, but tell them what you're trying to do. And if you have a good enough relationship with your hitting coach and you've learned from him, I think we can all attest to it, is when you're working with a hitter, they need to learn and they need to be able to leave that night and know what they just worked on. Not just walk out the door and say, I don't know what I did. I hit 150 balls and the track man said I hit one 380 tonight. No, what did you learn? What did y'all talk about? Because there's a whole lot more that goes into it. So I think building that relationship between the coaches, and there's a lot of egos in baseball. It's just the way it is. And you just have to understand what you can kind of say and what you can't say, basically, is the whole thing. But it all goes back to asking why and knowing what type of hitter you are. And ultimately, you can play this game, but you only get one shot at this. Once it's done, your career is over with. That's it. And I wouldn't want to live in the regret of, dang, I wish I would have actually tried working this as opposed to doing it that right way, because as coaches, there's new players coming in each and every year. So, hey, it didn't work for him. Oh, well, we'll get the next one next year. So it is your career. Be in charge of it and do research.
Welcome
Good
back.
stuff. Good stuff. I do think, just real quick, is just, it's important for all players to have a good relationship with their coaches, and there's nothing wrong with asking questions as long as you're doing it the right way. And I think probably that's where some coaches get turned off to players if they don't handle it properly. But I think when players address things with their coaches and you do it at the right time and the right way, it's just going to strengthen your relationship with them, and it's going to be a really positive conversation. So don't be afraid to talk to your coaches. So let's see, we just got a couple, we're getting some kind of individual questions that I think would probably be hard for these guys to answer, without actually probably seeing some of y'all's swings. But we had a question earlier. I wanted to get to that one. Can somebody explain bat lag, the terminology of bat lag? One of y'all want to handle that?
Want it, Ryan? Welcome back.
I guess I'll take it. I two things that come to mind for me when I think bat lag. I think it's more, especially for young hitters, understanding we're not trying to be handsy as hitters. We don't want our barrel to lead our swing. We want to start with the lower half and then eventually let the barrel follow behind that. It's not going to be a disconnected swing. It can happen very quickly, so it's not like we're searching for that at the plate. I think the big thing is, especially when you're looking video, that I look for, guys, is a lot of times our bat lag or our bat following is a product of our lead arm. So it's our lead arm leading us into the zone, is that barrel following behind. And that bat lag or the barrel staying behind that allows just for adjustability. If we're going to be handsy early, we're going to lead with the barrel. It's going to be really tough to make adjustments, especially on breaking pitches and fastballs get a lot better and start moving on you. So, yeah, I've heard of barrel lag. I never used barrel lag, so a little tough to talk about, but it's the idea. I'm getting connected with it. It's not like I'm just letting my barrel stay back there, but is my body getting my swing into the zone, and is my barrel following that turn?
Okay, good stuff. All right, we're going to kind of do like a little quick hitter here to try to get through some of these questions. So, panelists, try to do your best to be. I know it's kind of hard for Coach Haig. He likes to talk. So,
I do like to talk.
we're going to try to keep these answers short and condensed as possible to try to get to some of these. I know some of these are really general questions and are hard, but let's see. So let's go with Coach Haig here. What should be the difference in your mindset at the plate with runners on base versus no runners on base?
I mean, a lot of it, we're gonna keep talking about what type of hitter the guy is. I think just a very general mentality is. I know it's a difference of coaching style. It depends on game planning. There's a lot of things that go into the difference of those two. I know with a runner in scoring position, I'm going to try and trust my depth a little more. So I'm not afraid necessarily, because the percentages show runners in scoring position, off speed typically is thrown more. So I would think be more aggressive on the first two strikes off fastballs, but being aware that knowing the situation with a guy on runners in scoring position, I have to back up the ball a little more. Very general answer to that. But there's a lot of different ways to do it, man. Honestly, and it starts with who you are. A big physical guy might not have necessarily much of a two-strike approach. He can maybe target hit to left center field for a lefty, or the opposite field gap with runners in scoring position. There's depth on the plate a guy can do. There's a lot of different ways.
All right,
All right.
no, good stuff. We're going to try to get to some of these other questions. James Reyna asked the question, and I'm going to answer this one and be real quick, but what should be a modern leadoff hitter's approach? I think if you're leading the game off, if you're the leadoff hitter of the game or any inning, get on base. That's the bottom line. Just get on base. I don't really think that there's a modern leadoff hitter approach versus an old-timey approach. Getting on base percentage leads to runs. So I think if you're a leadoff hitter, that's going to be your goal. Get on base.
Can I add something to that? Because I like to talk.
Yes.
So a modern leadoff hitter, I agree with Jack. I think a leadoff hitter in general needs to be very good at manipulating and controlling his movements. So when we can do that, usually it does lead to a little more contact and getting on base. And also, when we can control our movements a lot in our swing, we have a tendency to lay off tougher pitches more. So that kind of factors into getting on base, like Jack was talking about.
Logan asked, I'm not sure which Logan this is, but said, what is the best way to move a heavier bat? Well, my smart pitcher self would say get stronger. But I don't know, do you have anybody want to add anything to that?
Do it with your big muscles, man. Use your lower half. Yeah.
Hey, do you want to talk to him about overload, underload at all, Ryan? I know you're like a G unit on that.
I don't know if I'm a whiz, but guys, I wouldn't shy away from swinging some overload and underload bats. That is the overload is about 6 to 8 ounces heavier than your -3, and then underload is lighter than your -3. But I think swinging a heavier bat at times can really promote good connection. And like I said, using your big muscles to try to create bat speed, especially for guys that really want to be handsy or get away from their body. You get away from your body with that barrel, you'll really feel it with that weight. And then we talk a lot in our organization about launch quickness and be able to move the barrel quickly. So swinging with an underload can really help your body feel that ability to, like we've talked a lot about tonight, deepen the ball up, make a later swing decision, and then get it into the zone. So definitely something to get into. And I've got some programs, so DM me on Twitter if you're interested.
Good stuff right there, guys. Just got a nice offer there from Ryan. Question here, other than working off the tee, what are some things I can do to strengthen my swing while we are on this long break? So maybe Coach Adam, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so I mean it's tough because working off the tee is really all you can do right now. Soft toss, it all depends on what you have at your house, or if you're at a park, if you can go to the parks and bring a buddy with you or whatever. I don't know what the rules are in different states and stuff like that. But working off the tee, but what I will say is work off the tee the correct way. Don't get on the tee and start taking what I call G-hacks off the tee to see how far you can hit the ball, because nothing's good going to come from that. And that goes into also people scouting, people using pocket radar to see how hard a kid can hit it off the tee. It shows you absolutely nothing when it comes to is this kid a really good hitter or not. So be smart when you hit off the tee. Do soft toss if you're able to. If you're able to go to a park and you can do some flips or whatever it is, it all depends on where you're at right now and what the regulations are and what do you have at your house. Do some a thing I like to do is mirror work. Get in front of the mirror, see how your body's moving. Dry swings. You'll see a lot of stuff going on where, hey, I'm going to work the different parts of the zone. Is my angle the right way as I'm coming in through that zone? Is my body in the right position? Am I launching quick from this position? Like we talk about, work a lot out of what I call the launch position, where your feet are in the ground, you're ready to rock and roll. And that stuff I think that gets overlooked that not a lot of kids are doing enough is dry swings in front of the mirror. It's just something easy, but it's one of the things, I feel like I always have to hit a ball to make something happen or improve myself. Where some of the mirror work is some of the best work out there. And then that's basically some stuff I have in mind. What about you guys?
I saw a pretty cool video on the Knights YouTube. I can't remember which coach did it. He put a laundry string from fence to fence, and he put a blanket over it to like serve as a net to hit into, which is kind of fancy.
Yeah, it was Coach Derek McCrory.
That was pretty cool. I saw that, and I was like, dang, that's very, very creative. I just get your work in the right way. I agree with Coach Adam.
All right, we're going to do a couple more, guys, and then we're going to wrap it up for tonight. Barrett Newman had another question on what workout moves are the most beneficial for bat speed and power. I know that's a broad question, but if there's any one, exercise that you guys maybe would think applies there for bat speed and power.
Who wants it? Who wants it?
Rotational ball throws. That'd be mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Want me to get a med ball and show?
Please do. You got one?
I wish, man. I'd be up to do it.
Yeah, rotational med ball throws, and those are the best way to kind of simulate your swing movements as well as trying to work on explosion and stuff like that. And try doing it not necessarily where maybe you're pushing it, but maybe you're throwing it up against the wall from a point like in your position of hitting, releasing it to it. And it doesn't have to be super heavy weight. Just kind of work your movements there from that standpoint to learn how to move fast, I would say. And then a favorite of mine is either deadlift. If you can deadlift or you find somewhere that has a hex bar or a regular deadlift, I just think that helps generate so much power coming from the ground. And it's probably the favorite exercise out there.
For power, just some like mechanical stuff. Don't be afraid to stretch your movements out bigger without going into like too much detail. Don't be afraid to have bigger athletic movements on your gather, and on your move forward, try and create some momentum before your front foot hits or get in the launch position, or people call it heel strike. Whatever it is, you can stretch those movements out if you want to see some power. And you can add a little more power with momentum and controlled momentum. Now, there is a fine line with that. You don't want to sacrifice the ability to make contact all the time, but if you want to see what you can do, stretch out your movements more from a mechanical standpoint.
Okay. Thought we had one more. Let me see. Brennan Surlis asked a question, best either thought process or drill for timing, for improving your timing. Is there a drill in the cage that you can do to work on timing specifically?
I know I like exaggerating velocity. Exaggerate velocity, train variability. So go back and forth. Make sure you're training hard. Some stuff you can start at the top of the zone so we can really focus on turning high with our barrel mechanically, and then you can slowly back off speed or depth. So making it practice setting basically really hard. My answer to that.
Okay. We just had another one come in. We'll answer this one. Adam or Ryan, take it. I always hear coaches talking about hips before hands. What are your thoughts about that?
You want to run?
Yeah, I'll start it. Yeah, I think it depends on the guy. I think some hitters can handle more separation. You see like a guy like Josh Donaldson, he really stretches himself out, and it looks like he's getting a ton of separation between his upper body and his lower body. So he would be a guy that more looks to me using his lower half before his hands. But a guy like we got in our organization, Bo Bichette, man, like that guy, coils up, and then once he gets his foot down, it looks like his whole body's turning at the same time. So it goes back to a little bit like I talked earlier. It's about that barrel following the turn of our body, however you do it. But I think it's a good cue for some guys, especially guys that struggle with creating some separation or are really handsy early. But that's a tough one, man. Each hitter's different. What do you got, Adam?
Yeah, each hitter's different. And I think when younger kids or even maybe teenager kids start to think too much about the hips first before the hands, you create a lot of sidewind hitters. So a lot of guys that are pulling things foul, and they're kind of committing to the pitch and pulling everything off because they're thinking, I got to get these hips going. And so I think to keep it more simple, it all depends what kind of mover you are. I think Josh Donaldson's a very loose mover, and he can have that whip action created where, like going back to Nakuna type, his all looks more connected all together, where he's staying more in this direction with his barrel and his body as opposed to thinking so much of that. Now, does he think it? I have no idea, but maybe it's from a standpoint. I think the more guys are thinking about clearing the hips out, you start to create a lot of spinning hitters, shoulders flying off. They start flaring stuff that way, and they start hooking a lot of balls foul, which, yeah, it looks awesome when the ball goes 500 feet foul, but nothing like that plays, especially when they have different pitches coming in different zones. So if you're just creating what I call a spin hitter, then they can only hit one part of the zone all the way through. Now, obviously, if you do a breakdown of a video, you're going to see the hips move before the hands of most elite hitters, but maybe not necessarily are they thinking that the body's just unwinding that way.
Josh Donaldson's crazy athletic too. He's out of this world athletic. So yeah, it goes back to the human.
All right, awesome stuff. Well, we're gonna wrap it up from there. I'll let these guys just kind of have any closing thoughts that they may have, or any final suggestions before we close for the evening. We'll start with Coach Matt Haig.
First of all, it was a blast. I hope that you guys got something from this, and I think the biggest thing to take away from this is understand your body, understand why you're doing stuff, and be accountable and cerebral of what you do. When we start creating awareness of what we're doing and how we move, we can move to the next level. And I think building off that, we're never done building experience. We're always keeping it pushing. Even the best guys in the major leagues, they're still always working on their craft. So make sure we have some type of target when we do get in to work, and make sure that we're being efficient with it and challenge ourselves.
Good stuff. Adam?
Yeah, I think number one, keep it fun. I think the thrill of baseball gets taken out of you because you put so much pressure, whether it is the putting pressure on themselves or the parent putting pressure on the kid to succeed. And this game is hard. I think we all have been there and we've talked about it. You're going to struggle. You're going to have times where you don't want to play baseball anymore. But I think that's what drives all of us to continue to come back and try to play, is because if I have a bad day, hey, guess what? I get to play again tomorrow. And so keep it fun. One thing, the Last Dance is going on with Michael Jordan. And one thing to me is Michael Jordan, which is awesome, by the way, is he talked about, I'm going to dominate the fundamentals and the rest will fall in place. So from a hitting standpoint, dominate the fundamentals of hitting hard line drives. If you can try to do that the best you can before you start to venture off too much and dive off in the deep end, because there's a lot of information out there. I will say not all information is good information. So be careful of hitting Twitter or watching too much of different type of stuff. Try to figure out what kind of mover you are, or somebody that is a similar body type to you, and try to pick their brain. So obviously I'm a 5'10" left-handed hitter. I should have probably go watch Giancarlo Stanton, because we don't have anything in common there. And so just try to find somebody. And YouTube, there's no better time than right now to learn new stuff. And get on YouTube, watch hitters, and play the show. Learn how to play the game. I think playing the show video game will teach some kids how to play the game of baseball, because they don't watch it enough these days. So just take this time now to continue to learn and ask questions. And I had an awesome time with everybody tonight. This was a lot of fun. And I can't believe it's been an hour and a half, because it went by super fast.
Dang.
Yeah, and I think first off, just appreciate being on with you guys. It's like Adam said, it was a blast, man. I think that's one of the cool things about the time we're going through right now. A lot of stuff shut down. We can't get out and go play. Is, you know, we're able to set up these Zoom calls and chat hitting, and, you know, hopefully have a takeaway or two to make you a player. I'm gonna keep it simple, man. We talked a lot about, you know, some mechanical stuff, approaches, you know, what we do as hitters, what we look for in hitters. I'm going to keep it to, you know, when you're going up to the plate, great hitters always have confidence and they go compete, man. I haven't seen many great hitters out there that don't know how to compete very well and aren't, at least majority of the time, if not all the time, confident in their abilities. So as you guys go out there and continue to work and, you know, work on your craft and your swing, when game time rolls around, man, go up there like you're the best hitter on the planet, have confidence in yourself, and go compete your butt off. So
Awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, we really appreciate, obviously, everybody listening in tonight. I think at one point we're over 100 guys listening in. So a productive crowd, and we really thank Matt, Adam, and Ryan for giving us your time this evening and sharing your thoughts. And really, you know, again, it was designed just to try to help some people, and that's what we hope we accomplished that. But like I said, this was recorded, so we'll post this on our YouTube channel here soon. So if anybody wanted to kind of go back through it and listen in again, you'd be able to do that. But we'll have some more Zoom calls coming in, you know, soon. Hopefully we'll get some pictures on this thing, the real athletes. Again, guys, thank you so much, Matt, Adam, and Ryan. Just can't thank you enough, and we really appreciate everybody listening in tonight. Everybody take care, and good night.
Bye, y'all. Stay safe.
Thanks, guys.